Hey everyone, is this thing on? Hey y'all, it's Eva. Want to know how I got started with this podcast nearly 2 years ago? Well, keep listening. I downloaded the Anchor app and went to anchor.fm to start editing and producing my podcast. I added music and sound effects and all these amazing things that Anchor provides you with absolutely for free so you can make the most out of your podcast. All you have to do is download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. And what is so amazing about Anchor is that Anchor will distribute your podcast absolutely free. It will distribute to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many, many more. And you can make money off your podcast no matter how many listeners you have on your listenership. That's right. You can get paid for your podcast, which is absolutely amazing. You can have fun and get paid while doing so. So if you want to get started with your very own podcast, download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm. Do it now. Hey, happy Monday and welcome back to another episode of Is This Thing On? Sorry, I know that mic tap is so lame, but like I said in the previous episode, you're just gonna have to deal with it until I get a better mic. Anyways, how is everyone? How are y'all doing? How has your week been? I've had a great week. Last week was a pretty awesome week. But to be fair, I'm not doing much these days because I'm still on summer vacation for at least another 3 more weeks. And then the school year starts for me because if some of you may or may not know, I'm a teacher. And so my summer break is kind of coming to an end pretty soon. I don't want to think about it. I love my kids, love my students, but I also need my break. And which kind of segues into today's topic of what makes a healthy relationship. What does a healthy relationship look like? We're going to be talking, kind of going into it a little bit. There's a really good Psychology Today article that I found that I'm going to be linking below in the description box in case you guys want to go read it. These are just like some nice science / psychology findings that I found on the internet, along with my own personal thoughts that I'm going to be adding onto this episode. So what can I say? Grab a snack, grab a beverage of your choice. Right now I'm sipping on almost done iced coffee that I made a few minutes ago, and just hang tight, guys. It's gonna be a fun one. So last week, let's see, just to give a little recap of last week, because I think I'm gonna start doing that in every new episode that I do. That way you guys kind of know more or less where we're jumping off from. And it's also just kind of helpful for me because I'm able to better assess how to kind of segue my way into the new episodes. But on this podcast, we really just talk about anything and everything, and there's like no set order. But I think what I was talking about last week, which was about my inner child being silenced and not heard and whatnot, I think we can relate that to this topic that we're talking about today, which is about healthy romantic relationships. So I think we can bridge the gap between the two. So first of all, if you didn't know, these are my credentials. I have a bachelor's of science in psychology and a minor in sociology. It's been a while since I've been in school. I'm going to be honest, you guys. I've been dying to go back to grad school, but I'm just going to point blank be honest here. In this economy, Lordy, it's tough out there. Eventually I do want to go back, and I keep saying that over and over again, but I really do want to go back, whether it be for psychology, which is like my passion, or business. I kind of had this like epiphany this year that I kind of also want to do something in business, just because studying economic trends and all that is kind of fascinating, I don't know. I don't know, but with this recession and the way things are going, I mean, it seems like a pretty good idea to kind of know what the heck is going on in the economy. And I feel like, obviously, you don't need a master's degree in business to know how to do that. But, I mean, it would be kind of nice because then you kind of just know what you're going into when you're doing all the financial and crunching numbers and business stuff. You know what I mean? Again, you don't need a master's degree in that, but it's just fun. Anyhow, so last week we were talking about my inner child being silenced and how it resulted in me kind of creating this trauma response where I just kind of overshare everything because as a child, I was silenced a lot. I was never fully able to express myself, especially when it came to my feelings department. I was never able to let my parents know how I was feeling, and if I did, I was always very shut down and dismissed very quickly and kind of just told to ignore what was going on and just let it go. And so as a result of that, as an adult, I created this trauma response, aka the oversharing, to compensate for the fact that no one would listen to me as a child. And I felt the need to be heard as an adult because my inner child was wounded, and so that's why I overshared. Anyways, if you want to know more about that, just listen to the previous episode. I think it was a really, really good one that I was able to really, really cohesively put into words, at least what I was experiencing. And my psychologist seemed to think so. I mean, she said I had some pretty sound ideas. She said I really, it really, really made sense to her. So if she's giving me her stamp of approval, I must be doing something right? Anyways. Oh, don't mind the background noise. It'll be just like me sipping on my coffee and then my cats kind of like playing and fighting with each other. So they're kind of calm right now. So I'm taking this time really to to record this episode. Anyhow, so as I mentioned before, I have been in a relationship for the last 5-ish so months. I have an amazing boyfriend whom I love and cherish very, very much. And it's so funny because a year ago, around this time, July, I made an episode saying how I wasn't ready for a relationship because I thought I was emotionally unavailable. And the truth of the matter was that I made that episode because I think by that point in my life, I had realized that, because we were talking about also runner-chaser dynamic last week, right? I had realized that give me a second here. I'm trying to put those thoughts together. I think at that point in my life when I made that episode, I was kind of hurt by just everything that was going on for me, especially in the romance department. I was just so tired and kind of felt very miserable and almost like I had almost like given up on the idea that I would ever be loved in a healthy way in a relationship, because for most of my dating endeavors, if I can even call it dating, I was really, really just throwing myself at these guys. And I can say that with full honesty because my boyfriend would tell you that he didn't always like me. Not as in like didn't always like me as a person, but I didn't pique his interest romantically until I had kind of stopped trying romantically. Because I'm kind of a flirt when it comes to... I'm not so much anymore because I've been in a really, really healthy, stable, amazing relationship. But before, I was very, very flirty when it came to dating and approaching men. And my boyfriend, before we were dating, you know, he obviously wasn't interested in me, but he let me know that he wasn't interested in me because he said that my flirting came off as desperate, which in hindsight, honestly is true. It hurts a little to hear that coming from someone that you really, really care about, but I think it's true. And I think I was coming from a place of low self-worth when I was flirting with these quote-unquote men I was interested in. It really, really came from a place of desperation, a place of trying to fill a void through a relationship and being lonely. And let me just tell you, I think we should never date someone or go into a relationship thinking that that person is going to satisfy every single desire that we have. And I'm not just talking about physical desires, like sexual desires. No, I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about like emotional fulfillment, emotional contentment. You know, I think for a lot of the time before I got into this amazing relationship that I'm in, I was seeking out emotional fulfillment through trying to create a relationship with these emotionally unavailable men that would have never resulted and never have worked out either way because, hello, emotionally unavailable people are very emotionally immature. And I may have called some people out right there by saying that, but it's kind of true. If you really, really, really think about it, how can we expect someone to go into a relationship with a serious look on it if they can't even assess within themselves what it is they want in a romantic partner and in a romantic relationship? And that takes working a lot within yourself and doing that inner work, and also just, like I've said it before, and I think it's pretty obvious, but being open and receptive to the idea of being vulnerable with someone. And I think a lot of us, you know, a lot of us struggle with that. I mean, I struggled with it before I was with my boyfriend. I think I was really, really put off by the idea of being so vulnerable with someone, especially because I'm incredibly sensitive, and for a long time I hated that part of myself. I hated the part of myself that was like an insecure little girl that felt the need to cry over everything and get emotional over everything and sulk in my feelings. And I've said this before, but I think there is a time and a place to let yourself sulk in your feelings a little bit. But then after that, it's really, really doing the inner work and the groundwork and being like, okay, how am I going to get myself out of this rut? Because I can't expect another person, whether that be a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a friend or a family member, to get me out of that rut. I can't expect another person to put that responsibility onto someone else. Is just unfair, first of all, and it's immature, and it's not reasonable, and it's also just like not it's unrealistic. It's unrealistic to expect that of another person to pull you out of that rut. And I'm not saying we can't rely, or we can't have that time of, okay, you know what? I've done everything I can. I need to seek out help. Don't think I'm trying to say that it is wrong for us to seek out help from friends, families, boyfriends, girlfriends, etc., right? It's not. It is absolutely not. But if you're expecting that person to like suddenly rid you of this emotional state that you've been in, that's kind of unfair. It's unfair. I think there's only so much our friends and our family can do. And after that time, you have to decide, okay, do I work on this on my own, or do I get a professional? Do I go seek out a professional? And once you reach that point, I think there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I had to make that choice for myself, where I was like, you know what? I can't deal with this anymore on my own. I can't emotionally dumpster dump on my friends and expect them to have an answer, because a lot of the time they would sit there dumbfounded and be like, you know, Eva, I can't help you with this. I don't know, what do you want me to say? I can't fix this for you. And I was like, I'm not expecting you to fix this. I just want you to listen. But it gets to a point where even the listening can be too much for someone that is not a trained professional and that doesn't have that bias towards you because they know you. Whereas a professional like an LPC or a therapist or a psychologist, like I'm seeing, you know, they can give you that unbiased, subjective opinion, you know? I think, and if you're able to go and seek out professional help, and you have the means and the resources to do it, awesome, do it. I highly encourage it. But if you don't, it's taking those steps to figure out how you're going to do that. Anyways, so going back to it, we can't expect our partners, our boyfriends, our girlfriends, our friends and families to always be there for us, always be helping us get through these emotional ruts and whatnot. And that goes the same for a relationship. You know, things that make a good relationship are, obviously, we have trust, good communication, we have patience, empathy, affection and interest, flexibility, appreciation, room for growth, respect, reciprocity. Am I pronouncing that right? Reciprocity. Reciprocity. And then healthy conflict resolution, individuality and boundaries, and openness and honesty. By the way, these are all points I'm getting from a Psychology Today article. I'll link it below. It's from 2018, so it's new, but it's not that new. If you want to go read it, it's a pretty good article. Anyways, so yeah, let's start with that. I think that just a background on how I got into this relationship. If I've talked about it before. If you're my boyfriend, you don't have to listen to this. But you can if you want to. I don't know. Shout out to my boyfriend. Anyways, me and my boyfriend were friends for a while before we got into a romantic relationship. We already had that rapport and that, I guess, trust in a way of being able to talk to each other and like not rely on each other, because we had been friends for a while before anything romantic ever developed, but we were always very comfortable with each other. I was with him very comfortable, and he was one of the people that really, really, really helped me when I was going through a lot of emotional turmoil last year. And not that I really, really relied on him, but he made himself available to me when I needed someone to vent to, when I needed someone to give me good, practical, honest advice. He was always there for me. And then in our friendship, we always had this very witty back and forth banter, and we were always very lighthearted with each other, and him and I have very much the same humor. So it was always very easy to strike up a conversation with him, because a lot of it would start off kind of like as a joke or a pun, or just something witty that one of us would say, and then we would kind of like piggyback on that. But him and I both love making puns and whatnot. But he recognized that I was really going through it, and he saw that it would be good for me to go to therapy, because I had mentioned it to some of my friends that I had been wanting to go to therapy for a while, but I was a little bit scared because I was like, well, it's going to cost a lot of money and yada, yada, yada. And at this point, I was kind of making excuses for myself too, because all my friends were literally like, you should go to therapy, or you know, if you have health insurance, why don't you go to therapy? Like, we can't keep, you know, some of my friends were like, you know, I love you, but this is too much, and I don't know what solution you want me to offer, because I give you this advice and you never seem to take it. And so it was very emotionally draining for them, I would say, too, to expect them to have these answers to my problems. Anyhow, so what was I saying? I got lost in my thought, guys. Come on. I'm trying to bring it back. Anyways, my boyfriend was always very supportive of me doing therapy and going to therapy. And more so after we started dating. But it really took a very humbling moment for me to finally be like, no, you need to go to therapy. You need to work on yourself. You need to get your act together. And it was just a lot. Like, you get to a point where what you're going through is a lot. And it's okay to admit that you can't do it on your own. It's okay to admit that it's a lot for you. I think, don't think of it as a sign of defeat. Think of it as, I'm helping myself. And it is okay if we do come to that point of defeat where we can't deal with it on our own anymore. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it takes a lot of bravery, a lot of courage to admit that you can't deal with what you're dealing with on your own. It takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of bravery. And it really, really takes an emotionally intelligent person to be able to assess all that. And so I decided by November, December, I was already looking into professionals, into psychologists. I wanted a psychologist. I didn't want an LPC. I wanted a psychologist because I thought my mental health problems were greater than something a LPC or a regular therapist could help me with. And no shame to those people that just have a regular therapist or an LPC. I think that's fine. But a psychologist just worked better for me. And I love her. I love my psychologist. She's awesome. So anyways, going back to what makes a healthy relationship. So because me and my boyfriend always had this like lighthearted, fun, witty banter of a friendship, and we were always able to just talk to each other so openly about things that were going on, more so me than him, but he was always very receptive to it and always willing to listen. And I think that the thing that we need to look for in friendships and relationships is finding a partner that's willing to listen and be patient about it. There was never a time where I felt rushed or felt like I had to minimize what I was feeling around him. And I think that's a sign of a healthy friendship and more so a healthy relationship. And so I think that those things made it very easy for me to go into a relationship with him. Because I was always very trusting of him. We always trusted each other. And I can tell you right now, like, I trust him 1,000%. He trusts me 1,000%. We've, have had conversations about me, for example. I have a lot of guy friends, right? And one of the things very early on that I talked to him about was, how does he feel about me having a lot of guy friends? And he was okay with it. He was seemingly very okay with it because he trusted me. He knew what was going on. And I would tell him, hey, I'm going to go hang out with so-and-so, just letting you know. And he knew that there was nothing sketchy or shady going on there. Like, he knew at the end of the day that those were just guy friends. And there was never anything going on behind the scenes. So he was always able to trust me with that. And I trust him as well because he just always lets me know what's going on. And we're able to express and be vulnerable around one another. More so me than him. But there was never a period where I was never not trusting of him. And I see it. I have very strong opinions when it comes to, like, trusting your partner, especially when it comes to, like, I've seen couples that they know each other's passwords on their phones and their social media accounts and all this stuff, and people looking into their partner's phones and whatnot, and snooping through their phones and all this stuff. And, we've never had to do that with one another because we just trust each other. I don't feel the need to ever grab his phone and look through it, and he doesn't ever feel the need to grab my phone and do that. And I think, I might be calling some people out here, but that's fine. I think if you're at the point where you're having to grab your partner's phone and ask them for their password and ask them for their password on their social media accounts and, watch their every move, that is called being controlling and manipulative. And that's not healthy at all. Like at all. There's no need to do that. Like, really, I think so often a lot of people end up doing that because they either got cheated on in a previous relationship and their trust was violated, right? And okay, that's kind of normal. I would understand why someone would be so apprehensive of their partner's whereabouts and what they're doing and their social media accounts and whatnot. But, I mean, all of that could be solved if you guys just sat down and talked to each other instead of going all Nancy Drew and figuring out, who is my boyfriend talking to? Who is my girlfriend talking to? I need her password. I need this. And then there's one that just goes very extreme, and it's having each other's location. Are you freaking kidding me? Like, that's just wrong. That's just so wrong on so many levels. I mean, especially if you're not married to that person yet. Like, if you guys aren't married, like, there is no need to be doing all that. And even if you are married, and maybe, look, I can't speak for married people because I am not married. I'm not married. But I think there's something to be said about wanting to know where your partner is at all times of the day. Like, that is just not right. I mean, it's one thing to call each other up and be like, hey, babe, I'm going to be at a friend's house. We're going to have a party. Bye. Thank you. Like, and then them being like, okay, have fun. I love you. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Or letting them know, hey, I'm going to go to Starbucks. Do you want something? Or just stuff like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if you're like, if you have them on, like, Find My Friends and you're like constantly looking at their location throughout the day, or you're, telling them to turn their location on and whatnot, like, come on, guys. That's a new level of extreme. Like, there is no need to do that if you have clear and concise communication with your partner. And if that means you guys have to sit down and possibly have a little grudge match, so be it. I think we just enable these toxic behaviors because we are so afraid to sit down and really, really, really talk about them, instead of going straight to the source and figuring out what our partner means by this, and figuring out, okay, is this what you're okay with? Is this what I'm okay with? And hashing that out together, instead of having all these insecurities, because they really are just insecurities. I could understand, again, if you got cheated on and someone violated your trust in your previous relationship, I'm so sorry that happened to you. But there is no need to micromanage your relationship and your partner's, time and all that. Like, there's no need for that. And if you get to that point, you may need to start having a conversation about where that's coming from and how you cannot do that, because it's just wrong. So I think I covered the trust and the communication aspect of that. I think it's important to always, if something's making you uncomfortable in the relationship, talk about it. If someone is going too far and crossing a boundary that you're not okay with, talk about it. If your desires are not being met, whether that's physical, emotional, whatnot, talk about it. Talk about it. You want to know what's on your partner's mind? Talk about it. That's it. That's really, really it. It cannot get more simple than that. The other thing that I think is so incredibly important to have is being patient. Being patient with one another. Sorry, I had just finished my coffee, so I'm over here. There you go. Okay. Being patient with one another. That means if I'm going through something, or I'm having a week, a day where I don't want to be social with anyone, where I don't want to talk about anything, where I'm not in the mood to engage in anything social or be around my partner, or if I'm just I'm just not having it, right? It's being able to work through that. There's times where my boyfriend has very openly told me, hey babe, I love you, but I'm not in the mood to socialize or hang out today. Is that okay? And of course I say, yeah, it's okay, babe. It's perfectly okay. We all have off days. We all have times where, again, we're not going to be the most social, the most pleasant. And it's due to a variety of factors. It's due to our health, to our sleep, to our stress, to our physical health. Pardon moi. I'm so sorry. I had to burp. It's the coffee. But we all have times where we're not going to be as lovey-dovey as we would like, or being able to be as accommodating to one another sometimes. And we're going to have times where we would rather just be alone and be distant from people and be just not in a space of even communicating with anyone at that point. And that's fine, just as long as you let your boyfriend or girlfriend know, hey, I need a day, I need a time to just figure this out by myself. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's also important to assure your partner that you're not pushing them away by doing this, but you just need your time and your space figure this out. Because sometimes we actually just do need time to figure things out on our own. We need that time of introspection, of self-reflection, to figure out what works best for us. And once we do that, I think we can come back even better, even stronger in our relationship. And there's times where I give my boyfriend space and he gives me space. Like, for example, during the week, he's working. And right now, I'm not currently working because I'm on summer break. But I still have a job, by the way. I'm just on summer break. I don't message him frequently during the week. I don't. We don't constantly back and forth message each other. Why? Because I trust him. I know he's working. I know he's busy. And I don't know. It's just kind of nice because then I'm not perpetually glued to my phone by doing that. And also just, I know what's going on in his life. And I don't feel the need to constantly reach out every second of every day and figure out what he's doing. Because my world shouldn't revolve around my boyfriend. It should not. I trust him. I know what he's doing. And there's no need for me to be doing that. He has his own life apart from mine. And when we come together, then we come together. But there's a time and a place to be together, and there's a time and a place to be apart. And I know when he's working, he's busy. And same thing with me. Once school starts back up for me, the new school year starts, I'll get busy. And maybe I won't be as available as I currently am right now. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. But I also like the fact that we don't communicate with each other or don't text. What I'm referring to is texting and giving each other a phone call. We don't do that often during the week because for me, I kind of say, well, it's kind of nice because then I give him time to miss me. And that gives him time. I give him time to miss me and it's time for me to miss him. So, and I know that sounds kind of wrong by saying that, but it's really nice because then when we do come together, it's cute. Like, I haven't seen him during the week. He hasn't seen me. We haven't really talked to each other during the week. And it kind of builds up the anticipation to see your partner, right? And I also I like giving him his space. He likes giving me my space. I think that's important to have that space as individuals to do what we need to do, whether that includes working or doing activities with other people, with our friends and whatnot. But giving each other that time apart, to be apart, to grow as individuals, but then after that coming together, I think that's so beneficial. And I think it can really, really strengthen a relationship. And I think that's also part of the reason him and I have never had an argument. And I know you're probably like, well, you're in the lovey-dovey phase of your relationship. You're in the infatuation stage, and there's not really much to fight about because you guys are so in love with each other. And you know what? Hey, it's true. I'm so in love with my boyfriend. He's so in love with me. We're crazy about each other. But I think we haven't had an argument because we just give each other that time to work things out on our own. And if we do end up having a problem and we feel like we need to talk to the other person, we do it once we're available to each other. And once it's time for us to spend time together, that's when I, vent to him or he vents to me. And it's beautiful how we just are able to come together. But we also give each other our time and space to be ourselves, to be who we are as individuals. I think it's important to have a life outside of your significant other. It's important to not base I cannot repeat this enough, guys. It is very, very important to have your own identity outside of your relationship, outside of your boyfriend and girlfriend. Let me say that again. It's important to have your own identity. It's important to not base your identity on who you're dating and your relationship. Why do I say that? And why do I emphasize that? Because there's going to be a point in time where you get incredibly comfortable in your relationship, right? And all of a sudden, that same giddy feeling that you had at the beginning is no longer there. Because, once again, love is a risk. Love is a choice, right? We are by choosing to love someone, you're taking a risk. And you're making a choice to risk the chance of love, right? So I think that it's important to know who you are, first of all, before entering into a relationship. Know what you like, know what you don't like. And I think the beautiful thing about once being in a relationship with someone is that if you've already set that groundwork for yourself, you know who you are as a person, you know your personality really well in and out, and then you meet someone that also knows who they are, also has their own sense of belonging and identity and self-worth, and you bring that together, that's what makes a relationship chef's kiss. So beautiful, so healthy, and able to work harmoniously, right? Because it's really the bringing together of what you can bring and what they can bring into the relationship. And when you're able to blend that in beautifully, man, like, you guys will stand the test of time. You really will. So I'm very, very grateful that I have a partner, I have a boyfriend that just gets me and respects my time and my space and knows when I need to be alone, but knows also that I love him and I want to be with him. And we just give each other that time to miss each other and do our own things, but we also know at the end of the day that we love each other so much. And that's important. That's really, really important. I have never had to guess how my boyfriend feels about me, and he's never had to guess how I feel about him. And that is just, it's so beautiful, guys. I could sit here and cry happy tears about how important that is. Like, I never have to guess or wonder how he feels, and he never has to guess or wonder how I feel, because we are always just letting each other know. And I can tell you that words of affirmation are not my love language, like, at all. Like, I could care less for them. But when it's coming from my boyfriend and someone I really, really care about, it means the world to me. But it's not on my top, like, list of love languages. But it's important to have that, separation, and then figuring out in that separation who you are as a person, and then coming together and knowing, okay, this is who I am, this is what I bring to my relationship, this is what he brings to the relationship. It's just beautiful, and it works out very, very well. The other thing that's very important is having empathy for your partner. There's been times where I'm going through something and my boyfriend may not understand why it is I'm going through something, but he's always willing to hear me out. He's always willing to be so helpful and figure out how he can help me. And he tries to understand my perspective the best way possible. He tries to he tries to really, really empathize with me well. He tries to really, even though he may not be experiencing what I'm experiencing, he is able to sit there and try to be as understanding as possible. And I think a lot of the time, we're not going to understand sometimes what our partner's going through. We're not going to understand why they're in this emotional funk. We're not. But I think a good partner, in a good relationship, I think it's important to bear each other's burden sometimes and just be there for that person. Offer them a shoulder to cry on, a hug, a smile, being able to talk it out, though they may not understand it. But being able to talk it out in a very civil way, to the point where even if you do disagree, it's not this like emotionally charged, explosive argument, but you're able to reason through it in a healthy way, and you're able to then understand your partner better. I think that's really, really, really important. So yeah. So it's having empathy is being able to take your partner's perspective and trying to understand it. And then understand, how can I be the most helpful in this situation? How can I be a ray of sunshine for this person when they're feeling down? How can I best help my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my person, right? It's just being there for one another. It's just loving that person through that time that they're going through, and not always understanding what it is they're going through, but being understanding of their circumstance. Does that make sense, guys? I think that makes sense. Yeah. And I think another thing that is really, really important is having affection and interest for one another. I know not everyone is going to be a very PDA-filled, packed couple. I know I can't say that for myself, because my top love language is like physical touch. My boyfriend's top love language is also physical touch. So we just love hugging one another and being around each other. We're very physically affectionate. And I had never thought that I was going to find someone as physically affectionate as me. Because I just love, I'm a lover. I'm a big person. I'm a big hugger person. I love giving hugs. I love being affectionate. I love being there for someone and soothing them, even with just a hug sometimes, because it just feels right. The dopamine that's expressed through a hug and given through a hug, it's nice to sometimes give a hug to someone. And I think there has to be some aspect of affection in a relationship. If you guys are never like physically affectionate with one another, like that's like not right. Because then you can have a partner that is never physically affectionate, and then there's a partner over here that's yearning for that physical affection. Like, that's a power struggle right there. Like, I don't think we ever want to get to a point in a relationship where that's the case. I think there needs to be a discussion about that. If you feel like you're not getting that enough from your significant other, I think you need to talk about it and let them know, hey, this is what I would like. Obviously within reason, right? But this is what I would like, and let them know that you are not getting that met. And I think it's scary to be open and honest about that, but it's important, because how do you expect to build up the chemistry with one another if you're not somewhat affectionate? It doesn't always have to be like hugs and kisses, right? But it could be little things like, I don't know, letting each other know how much you appreciate one another is also a way of showing affection, right? And I think I do that with my boyfriend pretty often. I give him compliments pretty often. He gives me compliments, and that's our little way of expressing how much we love each other, besides the hugs and the kisses and all that stuff. But also, I think another important factor into this is like, you have to also like who you're with. Not just love them or tolerate them, but genuinely like your partner. Like being around them. Like, I like my boyfriend. I like being around him. He's my best friend. We love being around each other. We love talking to each other. We love having jokes. And we genuinely like each other's company. We like being around each other. He makes my day. I make his day. There's never not a time where I don't like him. And even before we started dating, I always liked having his company around. I always liked the conversations we have. And I think if you find yourself being like, I don't like who I'm with, I think you need to start having that conversation of like, do I really want to be in that relationship if I don't even like my partner? You know? Because there's a difference between liking and tolerating someone. And if you're just in that relationship because you tolerate them because they're occasionally affectionate, occasionally giving you compliments and showing you that they like you, they love you, you know, I think there needs to be a good balance. And if you genuinely don't like spending time with your significant other, I think it's time to reevaluate that relationship. Because why are you going to be forcing yourself to be in a relationship with someone if you don't like them? And that's really sad, because I think sometimes couples go through this like dry spell where they genuinely don't like being around each other. And it's sad, because then it's like all that affection and chemistry they once had for one another, it's like it almost disappears. And you become kind of like resentful towards your partner, and you get to that point where like, oh, I don't want to be around this person. And that's really, really sad. Like, why would you want to be around someone that doesn't value you, that doesn't like spending time with you, that doesn't appreciate you? You know? And I like the fact that me and my boyfriend, though we have very different interests, I like that we're able to like each other and share the different interests we have. And even though I may not understand a certain interests that he likes, I still like to partake in it sometimes and get to know why it is he likes that thing, because it's important to him. And it's important, I think, to partake in things that maybe we're not familiar with, but that our partner likes, and be kind of open to learning and listening as to why they like those things. But taking time in activities that each of us likes. It may be something different for him, it may be something different for me, but that we're able to like take part in each other's interests. I think that's really, really important. So obviously there's no amount of physical affection that is correct in a relationship. There's no amount of how much interest should I show, how much, there's no amount. It's up to those individuals to decide what is enough and what isn't. I mean, I feel very satisfied in my relationship. I can't complain. I always feel loved and appreciated by him. I'm sure he feels the exact same way. But yeah, it's important to genuinely like each other. And I think when you still like each other in a relationship, it's able to make dating just so much more fun. I think one of the things we talked about is that if we get married, we want to still keep dating each other. And that's important to, still be dating after you get married, after you have a spouse. It's still important to be dating your spouse, to still have that, build up in anticipation, right? Because I think couples lose that spark because they're no longer, gauging each other's interests. And it's almost like their marriage has become a chore. And you don't want to get to that point. You don't want to get to a point in your relationship, your marriage, where it's almost like a chore to be with that person. It's tedious. It's annoying to be with that person. That's not right. You don't want to be, glued to someone that just for the sake of taking up space, It's important to still be dating one another and still be getting to know one another despite already thinking that you know everything about that person. I think there's always going to be things that we don't know about our boyfriends and girlfriends, our partners, our spouses. And that's what makes it so fun and fresh and exciting about being in a relationship with that person, is always finding out new things about them. Because there's always something new to be learned. There's always something new to learn about that person and vice versa. So I think that always gives something to look forward to, something to anticipate. It makes it fun. It makes it fun to always be learning about your significant other and vice versa. It's good to have that. Also, another good thing, I'm kind of going down the checklist of that article that I was mentioning before, because I think it's just a good framework to use right now. Having that flexibility with one another. And what that means is being able to know when to be available to one another. Know when to Hey guys, we're back. Sorry, I had to take a little break. Anyhow, so we were talking about flexibility. And I think in flexibility, besides being able to assess when each person is available to one another, whether that's in a literal sense, available as in making time to go on dates and spend time with one another, and also available emotionally and everything like that. I think it's important to assess how much or how little of that we need. For example, we see each other, me and my boyfriend see each other 3 to 4 times a week. Usually on Wednesdays, occasionally it's on Fridays, and then Saturdays are our date days or date nights. So we see each other pretty often during the week, and I'm pretty satisfied with how often we see each other because like I was mentioning before, we give each other that time and that space to grow as individuals and do our things that we need to do, like going to work and hanging out with friends and doing all that. And that's very, very important to have that alone time, that time of individuality with before we come together, because then we're able to make time for one another and decide, hey, I want to go out on this time at this day at this hour. We're able to make that time for one another. We're always talking about planning things and making time for one another, and it always ends up being at a good time and in a good place where the other person's not working and the other person is able to do something. And if something doesn't work out for some reason, we're always able to communicate that. Like, let's say we were trying to hang out on a certain day and then something comes up, it's no big deal. I'm able to work it out with him, he's able to work it out with me, and we're able to find a different time to do that thing that we wanted to do. And then the same thing applies to when we're making a decision. I mean, we haven't made any difficult decisions yet in our relationship because we're still very early on into the early on stages of a relationship. But like, for example, it could be as simple as deciding where we want to go for dinner. I usually leave it up to him, and I'm usually very nonchalant about where to go out to eat. I don't have a preference. I'm like always like, oh, well, it's up to you, babe. And then he's like, no, it's up to you. Like, you decide where you want to go. And I'm like one of the most indecisive people in the world. So I kind of like it when someone chooses for me, because then I'm able to just be like, okay, like I can get this and we can do that. And I'm also vegetarian, so like sometimes when we're out eating, I have to kind of just like look and see, okay, I can eat this, I cannot eat that, I can eat this, I cannot eat that. But I'm usually very nonchalant about making decisions like that, or deciding where we want to meet up and hang out and what we want to do. I usually leave it up to him, but he also gives me the flexibility to be able to partake in that decision. And then we come to a compromise, because we're both very like easygoing people when it comes to stuff like this, like decision making. Again, we haven't had to make any like super difficult decisions in life yet, but we're both very nonchalant, pretty laissez-faire about it, pretty relaxed, you know. And at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to spending time with one another. So as long as we've made a choice to spend time with one another, it doesn't matter what it is we're doing, but we're able to both come to an agreement, which we are pretty much 1,000% of the time. That's all that matters to me. I don't really struggle with that. Like I said, I'm very indecisive, so I much rather him make the decision most of the time than me. And he's always willing and able to listen to what I have to say, because he'll tell me like, oh, well, if you don't want to go here, you can let me know. And then I let him know, and then we end up coming up with a compromise. Or most of the time I don't care, as long as we're together, as long as we're making time for one another. That's all that really matters for me. So yeah, I mean, it's good to have that middle ground with one another. I think some of us give more than the other person, and I think we have to be willing to sometimes pull back a little bit and let the other person also like say and give what they need to do, give what they need to give and say what they need to say, so that we can both like hear each other out and have a mutual consensus as to what we want to do. And I think in my relationship, I'm very grateful that it never feels like a power struggle. It never feels like I'm giving more, he's giving more, or I'm taking and he's taking more. It never feels like that. There's always a good balance of giving and taking and compromising. I mean, luckily we haven't had to compromise on anything difficult or anything like that, because we pretty much see each other on one accord. We're very, again, easygoing, and we're very like willing to just spend time with each other. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we're doing, as long as we're with each other. And so I think like if we ever did have a problem with that, obviously we would talk it out. Like, I'm always good about bringing things up. He's always good about bringing things up as well. And it's also having a partner that keeps you accountable, and he'll call me out when he's noticed that I'm not feeling my best or doing my best, and I'll call him out on something that, bothered me, and we're able to work through that. And that's important, because depending on how we're able to work through that is how we'll be able to keep up the longevity of the relationship. And that means really, really hearing each other out. Obviously, not screaming at each other, not yelling, not demanding more from a person than that they're willing to give. We've never had that issue. We're always very good about hearing each other out, letting each other know what is bothering one another, and we're good about equally giving of our time and our space and our energy in our relationship. I don't think we really have ever had a problem. We haven't had a fight either, so we're able to really just exist and be together in a harmonious way, because we're able to just reason through it and talk through it. We both have always been very communicative people, and very people that are able to talk about it very honestly. We did have a talk a while back about what we were expecting of each other in our relationship, and it was one of the first real talks that we had about our relationship. And once we had that talk, like towards the end of it, I thought we were going to potentially break up, because it was a hard-hitting conversation, but we were able to work through it. And we didn't argue with one another. It wasn't like this grudge match. It wasn't us screaming or arguing or, putting each other down. We have never done that. It was more so like him keeping me accountable for some things that I wasn't taking responsibility for. And I'm so grateful that he was able to tell me what I needed to work on, and in a very compassionate and loving and kind way. He didn't ever raise his voice at me or yell at me or let me know how horrible I was. He was able to keep me on the straight and narrow, but also let me know in a compassionate and kind way, hey babe, I think we should work on this. I think you need to work on this, so that our relationship's better. And I'm so grateful that he was able to point that out, again, in a loving and kind way, because I felt supported and I felt like closer to him after he did that. I felt like he really saw what was going on, and was able to point things out that I was doing wrong, but in a nice way. And we were able to figure out, that at the end of the day, it's not about changing one another. It's about growing as individuals. It's about what can we both bring to the table, what can we both improve about one another, but not trying to change the person. Because I think if you get to a point where you're trying to change the person, then that relationship can turn sour very quickly. You can grow to resent that person if you're just telling your partner, hey, you need to change this and 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 this about yourself. And then the other person grows resentful to that, because they feel like, well, wow, this person is making themselves out to be this perfect, like, no flaws individual that doesn't need to work on anything. And that's wrong, because there's always something to be worked out in a relationship. There's always something that we should be striving towards, that we should be working on as individuals. That way we're able to come together and we're able to see eye to eye. And I'm glad that we were both able to voice out what it is that was bothering us about one another. And also just, we were able to voice out, again, he was able to tell me, you need to take more responsibility for this. You need to grow up and mature a little bit. And I'm going to be honest, when he did tell me those things, I told him, hey, you hurt me a little bit by saying those things. But then we were to talk it out, and his intention was never to hurt me. It was to help me grow as an individual and to help our relationship mature in the way it's supposed to mature. And again, I'm so grateful he was able to do that in such a loving and kind and positive way. And I'm better for it as a person. And I'm truly grateful that he was able to do that, because there's sometimes things I can't see about myself that maybe another person can see. And it's very, very helpful for me as an individual to figure out what it is that is. And if someone's able to see if someone's able to see that without having bias towards me, that's great. Because then I'm able to figure out, how can I improve in that area? How can I improve as a person? And that helps me out like a lot. So I'm really, really grateful that I have an amazing boyfriend that's able to keep me accountable and let me know, hey, you messed up here, but it's okay because we're going to work on it and we're able to work it out at the end of the day. And be able to be honest with one another, like about how we felt when our boyfriend or girlfriend tells us something that maybe we don't want to hear. I was able to be honest with him and tell him that it hurt me what he said, but at the same time, it helped me. It helped me grow in our relationship. It helped me, and because of that, it gave me the push to finally take responsibility for what I was doing. And I credit my boyfriend to helping me make the choice to move out of my parents' house and be on my own. But because of him, like, I feel more in control of my life, and I feel more responsible, and I credit that maturity to him because he was able to see that and do that. And there's a time and a place to be responsible and also just have fun. And he lets me have fun, and I let him have fun, and we're both able to respect and enjoy our time apart, but then also come together as a couple and enjoy our time together. So there's a time and a place to be fun. There's a time and a place to be responsible, and there should also be a good balance and mixture between the two. And I think we both have done a good job of doing that, and I've been able to do a good job of doing that as well. I'm not, as much as I like to go out and be social and party sometimes, I'm not doing it so consistently anymore because I've come to realize that there's more to life than going out to parties and all that stuff and having fun with your friends. There's nothing wrong with that. But then at the end of the day, it's also good to spend time alone, spend time reflecting, spend time on working on yourself. And I think there's something to be said about being that person that always wants to work on themselves. I always ask my boyfriend, like, babe, what can I work on? Or what is bugging you about me, or any pet peeves or anything like that, because I want to make sure that I'm putting my best self forth when I'm in a relationship. But it's also important to realize that you're not always going to be your best self. And that's okay, because you have someone to let you know that it's okay to make mistakes, to be imperfect, but also you have someone that can help you go through these things. And I'm so happy and so blessed that I don't have to go through these things alone, that I have him. But I also am blessed that I have a psychologist that's willing to work with me and work through my issues, and because of that, I'm better as a person, and I'm better to, and I'm able to bring my best self forth in my relationship. But I also let my boyfriend know when I'm not feeling my best self, and I think that helps him a lot too, because he doesn't have to wonder about how I'm feeling. He doesn't have to wonder about how I'm doing as a person, because I always let him know. I'm feeling crappy. I'm feeling unmotivated. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling anxious. I always let him know. And I think that's important. I think it's never good as couples to hide how you're feeling towards one another and hide how you're feeling as individuals. Because how do we expect that person to know how to help us if we never let them know how we're feeling? If we always hide our feelings for the sake of not wanting to bring something up, for the sake of not wanting to be vulnerable, or for the sake of not wanting to cause an argument in that relationship. I think that's never healthy either, to keep those things bottled up and kind of hidden, because, you know, then we're not able to show up as our true, authentic, and real selves in a relationship. And it's important to be honest and raw and real in your relationship in order to help each other grow, in order to keep that relationship going. And it's good to not portray that you have this perfect relationship, because no one has a perfect relationship. And there's times where, you know, people will post just the highlights of their relationship on Instagram and on social media and whatnot, and that's just it. We're only seeing the highlights of those people's relationships, or we're only seeing as much as they're willing to let themselves show. And that's the other thing. Like, we can't be doing that. We can't be willing to just let our partners only see what we want to let them see. We have to be willing to not be so prideful and tear down those emotional walls that we've built up. Because I know sometimes we can get a little guarded and we want to protect that space that we have. But part of being in a relationship, part of making a relationship or marriage work is being able to let those people into those cracks in our emotional walls. I'm sorry, that was a burp or a hiccup, I'm not sure. Anyways, but part of having a successful relationship or marriage is being able to let our partners help us work through those parts of ourselves and our emotional walls, and letting those emotional walls come down, and being vulnerable with one another, being okay to seeing that other person, or being okay with like seeing a different side to that person, to being more emotional, to being more raw and real. And I'm so grateful again that I have a boyfriend that can really sense when I'm having an off day, can sense when I'm sad, when I'm not at my best. And he's able to give me that time and that space to work through it on my own, but he's also able to help me out and make me feel better and be there for me. And that's very, very, very important. Another thing that is really, really important is letting each other know how much you value and how much you appreciate one another. And that's kind of like going back to what I said about like words of affirmation. It doesn't necessarily have to be words of affirmation. That's some people's love language. It's not entirely mine. Even though I do like to affirm him more than being affirmed to myself. I love giving him compliments. I love giving my boyfriend compliments and letting him know how handsome he looks, or that I like what he's wearing, or that I like that he did that for me. But it's I like letting him know how appreciative I am of him, and he loves letting me know how appreciative he is of me. And we always let each other know what we like about each other and what we love about each other. And I think that's important because, you know, it makes a person feel valued. It makes a person feel important, like they have a role in that relationship, in that friendship. It's important to let people know, because sometimes we're just going through stuff that is very emotionally draining. And it's important to let those people know, hey, I know you're going through this, but you're so strong, you're so resilient, and I'm here for you. I'm there for you. I love you. And I will keep being there for you no matter what. It's important to let people know that they are loved, they are appreciated, they are valued. And I think all of us, whether we're in a relationship or not, all we really want in this life, besides having someone to share it with, or maybe not having someone to share it with, maybe being perfectly content and happy with being on our own, but the ones that do like to have someone to share a life with, a lot of us just want to be valued. A lot of us just want to be heard and seen. And I think when we don't have that growing up, it makes it very hard for us to go after partners and people that are emotionally available, because for a long time we didn't feel like we were worthy enough of having that connection with someone. We didn't feel like we were worthy enough of having someone that tells us exactly how they're feeling and also offers the same level of that it's a reciprocal effort. You know, it's not just someone giving. It's both people giving, both people being cognizant of each other's time and space and efforts. And for a long time, I didn't feel like I was worthy of that because I didn't have that growing up. I didn't have the emotional support I wanted, and it was hard for me to find a partner that was willing to do that. And also, I didn't feel worthy of it, so I would go after people that were emotionally unavailable because I felt like I had to win them over. It was almost like a challenge for me to do that, to find people that would do that. And that's why a lot of us, I feel like, go after emotionally unavailable people, is because it's almost like we're trying to woo them. It's this challenge that of getting them to open up and be emotionally available to us. But then we find out they're not emotionally available, and it makes us sad. But it's this continuous cycle that we keep putting ourselves into. And until we get to that point where we realize that we are worthy of a equal reciprocal effort, until we realize that we're worthy of that reciprocity. I suck at pronouncing these words. Until we realize that it's equally reciprocity. There we go, reciprocity. Until we realize that we want that equal reciprocity, I think we'll keep doing and engaging in that same pattern of finding these emotionally unavailable people, and making them open up to us, because they will never open up to us until they're comfortable with opening up to themselves. You know what I mean? We can never force someone to open up to us. Same thing with our relationship with our partners. We can't force our boyfriends and girlfriends to open up to us. They have to be willing to open up. And I will never push my friends or my boyfriend to ever open up to me if they don't want to. And there'll be times where they don't want to open up. And I'm like, okay, I understand. I'm going to give you your time. I'm going to give you your space. But when they are ready, they can know that I will be willing to listen and hear them out. And I need to give them that time and respect that maybe they don't want to be heard out in that moment. But that they know that at the end of the day that I'll still be there for them, regardless of whether they want to open up or not. So I think that's important to let someone know. And I always try to let my friends and my boyfriend know that hey, if you're going through something, you can open up. But also, if you don't want to open up, I'm still there for you. You still have someone to lean on. I think that's so important to do that. And for it to be reciprocal on both ends. I think that's incredibly important. Because why are you going to spend time with people that don't value you, that don't see you as equal? Why are you going to make the time and the effort to spend time with people like that? There's no point in doing that if you're just going to end up hurting yourself by doing that. So it's important to really assess and look at that, because life's hard and things can get hard. And I don't think we just want to be trotting down this road of, oh, there's never, like if you constantly feel like you have to be walking on eggshells with people and not letting them know authentically how you feel, what's the point of putting yourself through that every single time you're with that person? It just doesn't make sense. And I've gotten to a point where I don't want to walk around eggshells anymore with people. I let them know exactly how I feel. I don't hide anything. And maybe sometimes that can be a little overwhelming for people, because I am somewhat emotionally charged sometimes. But I rather people know exactly how I'm feeling than me sitting here alone with my own thoughts and emotions and not having a space or a person to vent that out to. Because that is a lonely life. That is a very sad and lonely life. So again, the other thing that was really important that's really important in a healthy relationship is, like I mentioned before, I give my boyfriend time and space to be his own person and do his own things. I get happy when he gets to go hang out with his friends and do his own thing, and just spend alone time by himself. Like, do I miss him? Yes, but I'm happy when he gets to do those things, because he also deserves that time to have to himself, and he is able to grow as a person in his own right by doing that. And it's also good to just give each other space. Like, I could not see myself hanging out with my boyfriend 24/7 every single day. And I'm sure he feels the exact same way too. Like, I think we could not do that, because we both each have so much going on in each other's lives that it's important to let each other do those things and not be completely self-absorbed and just make it all about our relationship. I think it's nice that we have distinct things that we do, that we have very different friend groups and friends, because it really brings a fresh perspective on our relationship. So I love asking him, hey, when do you have your guy time? Like, because it makes me happy that he has other people besides me to go and have fun with, to go and spend time with, to go and cherish that individual time with one another. I think it's important. I think if we didn't have that space, that time, and we were always with each other, I think we would grow to resent one another, despite how much we love each other. I think that it would almost be suffocating to be with one another 24/7 all the time. Like, that's just too much. So I think it's so important that we do that. I mean, he's met my friends, I've met his friends, and I'm happy that he has the friend group that he has, and he's happy that I get to go out and have fun. And he always tells me, because I let him know, hey babe, I'm gonna go out with my friends and I'm gonna do this, and he's like, okay babe, have fun, but don't be out too late and be responsible. And I appreciate that he gives me that time to myself, to be this other person. And because I think if you're with each other 24/7, like if you're always hanging out with one another all the time, I can see why people would end up like falling out of love for each other, and also just end up becoming bored in that relationship, because then you have nothing new to look forward to, you have nothing exciting to look forward to, and it becomes this habitual thing. And I think I'm not justifying cheating here, do not think I'm justifying cheating, but I think so often that's what ends up leading to someone wanting to cheat in their relationship, because they've realized how much time they spend with that person and how they're always glued to them 24/7, and that it can become suffocating. And also that person, those, both people can become very dependent and clingy towards one another, and that's never good to have in a relationship. And so one of the things I always ask him is, I tell him, like, please, babe, let me know if I'm ever being too clingy or too dependent on you, so that I can give you that time to spend time apart. And luckily, he's never told me that I've been clingy or anything like that towards him, which I'm so grateful that I'm not that way at all, because even I think I would be annoyed with myself if I did those things. But I don't think it's good to be glued to each other. Again, I don't think it's good to be with each other all the time. I think it's good to be apart. It's good to be separate. And I think if your partner gets jealous that you're spending time by yourself, you're spending time with other people besides them, I think that's a problem. I think you need to be okay with spending time with other people as well, spending time alone. And there shouldn't be jealousy there, because you should feel secure enough to be on your own without your boyfriend or girlfriend 24/7. And if you can't seem to do that, seek some help, man. That's all I gotta say. Like, work on yourself. Figure out, where is that jealousy, insecurity coming from? Because jealousy is a form of insecurity. It is a form of discomfort in a relationship. And luckily, neither one of us has that problem where we're jealous of the other person hanging out with their friends or vice versa. And we don't even have that problem of me getting jealous if he's with females, or if I'm hanging out with men. Like I've said before, I have a lot of friends that are guys. He has never once gotten jealous of me hanging out with my guy friends, and I've never gotten jealous of him being around another woman or talking to other women or any of that, because at the end of the day, we let each other know how much we love and appreciate one another, how much we value one another. We always let each other know exactly how we're feeling, and we always communicate if something is bothering us and we feel discomfort. But we give each other that space and that time, and we also have a lot of things that we're equally interested in, and we share interests with one another. But then we also have interests that make us different, and that is always fun and exciting to learn about those differences that we have as well. Because if we were always super alike, there would be nothing exciting to bring forth into the relationship. And I mean, there is going to be times in the relationship where it's not that exciting, where you've become very, very comfortable. And that's okay too. But it's also knowing that being comfortable in a relationship is perfectly okay. But also, just because like you've become comfortable doesn't mean you can't find ways to make things exciting or learn different things about one another. I mean, there's always something to be learned. There's always something to look forward to in your relationship with someone. So it's finding those outlets and the ways to do that with one another. But comfortability also means, it doesn't mean that you get complacent and you no longer try and put in effort in your relationship. That's not what that means. It means that you both feel secure in who you are. It means that you're both secure with each other, you're both secure as individuals, and that you both trust each other. And it also means that you have a good rhythm in that relationship going. You both understand what is expected of each other. You both communicate that clearly. And so that's what makes a relationship comfortable. And you also feel safe around one another. I've told him I feel safe around him, because he really does make me feel safe. I feel like I can be 1,000% myself around him. I never have to hide how I'm feeling or who I am around him, because he loves me for it. He loves my differences. I love his differences, and we're both able to just come into the relationship knowing that. So that's what makes a relationship comfortable. And it's okay to be comfortable in a relationship, but never complacent, never lazy. Because we should always be putting forth effort into a relationship. If you get to the point where you're not putting effort into a relationship anymore, I think it's time to reassess and reevaluate that relationship, and figuring out why you're not making time to put an effort into that person, into that relationship. Because you should always be putting effort into your relationship. And it shouldn't just be one person putting in effort. It should be both people. I cannot stress that enough. I think it should always be both people. And you guys should feel comfortable enough to talk about, hey, I think this is what's lacking in our relationship. Can we work on this? Can we work on it? I think that's a good sign of emotional maturity, of maturity within that relationship. And I think I'm so grateful that I have that with my boyfriend. I'm so incredibly grateful that I'm in such a good, healthy mindset position to where I feel like I don't have to hide that with him. I don't have to hide how I'm feeling. I don't have to hide what's making me uncomfortable or anything like that. I'm able to just be open and honest with him, and he's grateful for that, and I'm grateful for the times he's told me that he's not feeling well or he doesn't want to socialize, because we're all different people, and I'm more social than he is. He's definitely more introverted than I am, but we make it work, and we celebrate each other's differences, and it makes our relationship work. It makes our relationship stronger. It helps us both as individuals, and that's important. You need to be able to enjoy each other's differences, celebrate each other's differences, but also be able to have a good balance of both and come together. And that's what will make the relationship last. That's what will make the relationship stronger, is being able to do both of those things. And I don't know, I'm just so happy, guys. I really can't stress enough how grateful I am to God for this relationship that he's blessed me with, but also how grateful I am to my boyfriend and how much I love him. And if he happens to stumble across this podcast episode, babe, I love you. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I pray that we just keep growing in our relationship and maturing, and we find ways to keep celebrating one another. Anyways, I'm going to sit here. I could sit here and gush about how amazing my boyfriend is and how in love I am, but I'm not going to do that. But thank you guys for listening. I think all those things are signs that your relationship is going really, really well. And I'm sorry that I keep going back and making all these circular talking points. I was kind of talking in circles, but eventually I came back to the tangent that I was talking about. So sorry, I talk like that a lot. I'll go from one tangent to another and vice versa and back and forth, but somehow I'll find a way to bring it back to where it's supposed to be. So yeah, I think those are all good indicators that your relationship's going really, really well. I would love to have an episode where I just give advice, not even on relationships, but just like on mental health or just in general on anything that you guys are experiencing. I think that would be awesome to have, like, you know, to do like a little Q&A or to have an episode dedicated to giving advice. That I think that'd be a lot of fun if you guys send those questions in or things that you need advice on. That would be awesome to do. But anyways, guys, hope y'all are having a beautiful, wonderful morning, day, or night, whatever time of the day you are listening to this. I hope everything's going really, really well in life for you guys. As always, you can feel free to call the podcast number. That number is 956-278-0720, 956-278-0720, 956-278-0720. I don't know if that number actually still works. It might. I need to verify that. But you can leave a voicemail there. You can let me know if you want to be a podcast guest on there. Whatever you'd like, you can leave it on there. Leave me a voicemail. I also have a voice message link that is linked directly to the podcast website that I will link below in the description. You can also leave a voice message there. I also have a podcast email. I'll put that in the description box. As always, I will have mental health resources below, and I'll link that article below as well so that you guys can go read it. It's a good one. Anyways, guys, hope y'all are having a wonderful morning, day, or night, whatever time of the day it is. Let me know what else you want to hear from me. And I pray that you go forth, prosper, and God bless. Bye, y'all. Have a beautiful, wonderful day. Morning, day, or night. Mwah. See you guys on the next one. Bye.